Hi everyone. So today we're going to do a video follow-up of our webinar on genre analysis. This video also includes content on language analysis, which might be helpful for Delta Module 1, Paper 1, Task 5. We've also done a video on the structure of the task, so you might want to check it out as well. So let's get started. Here's a small activity to identify the genre. So you can pause the video and think about what different genres you can see in the different pictures. For example, in number 2, I see a fairy. So what genre can that be? I'm thinking fairy tales. I could be wrong. Let's take a look at the answers. So here we have all the answers on the right. For example, first one could be a Wikipedia article, or number 8 could be an instruction manual, and so on. The answers can vary because there are so many different types of genres. Think about your favorites in the classroom and also for your own personal reading. Now we're going to look at features of some of the genres. So here I have some examples. Let's match them to the features. So number 1, news report. It could probably be about headline, 5 W's, that is who, what, when, where, why, and objective tone. What about the rest of them? You can pause the video and do this exercise. I'm going to give you the answers now. So second one, persuasive article is about rhetorical questions, emotive language, and clear opinion. A biography has real people's life stories. It's factual, chronological. A fantasy is about imaginary worlds, magical elements, and good versus evil. Science fiction is about scientific developments, futuristic tech, space, time travel as well. And you could do the same about any different genre you can identify in different extracts. Now we're going to look at one example. So this is one I've collected from the internet. This is a Wikipedia article on Stanley Kubrick. And here's the first part of it. So we can think of what text types it might include as well. Text types will tell you more about the language features. So for example, recounts and narratives are more about stories. Narratives can be more flowery. The next 3 are unbiased. They are about information, academic, scientific, and then we have expositions and discussions, which can be about opinions. So exposition is very opinionated about one particular stance, and discussions may be more balanced and may include different perspectives by different people or groups. What do you think this article is? I'm going to show you the answer. So it's not a recount. We're not retelling events personally, although it does have a chronological element there. It's not a narrative because we're not telling a story with characters or fancy plots. It's not a procedure, so there are no step-by-step instructions. It is an information report because facts are presented objectively about a subject. And then we have explanation in some parts, maybe because it's an informative article, but overall it's still information. So it is an information report. It's not an exposition. It's not biased, no persuasive stance, and no discussion about different opinions. So it still says rarely because there might be some criticism of his work towards the end of the Wikipedia article, but majorly it's still an information report. Now, let's think about more features of it. And you can do the same for all the other text types. Information reports have factual information. They move from general statements to categories, especially this Wikipedia article. So you might have personal information, professional information, awards that the person has won over their lifetime, all of that. And then technical vocabulary while still being in the present tense, the formal objective tone. Passive voice in third person is very common in different parts of the text. And the audience is general public, it's broad audience, it's not a specific audience looking for technical articles, and it's not for children, so it's not pedagogical and so on. Now we're going to look at the different kinds of features that you might encounter. So we have in genre analysis, the layout itself, that's the first thing that you should think about. Then the organization, intro, body, conclusion, how is the text organized, is there a certain flow to it? Cohesion, which is linked sort of to organization. So here we can talk about how different linkers like however, on the other hand, those kinds of words are used. Lexical grammar together. Sometimes there can be a thin line and the functions can overlap. And finally, context and function. So looking at the article again, we're going to list some of the features. So you can see here some details about Stanley Kubrick, then who he is, and it goes on to talk about his high school and some of his work. The features that are the most common are use of third person and declarative sentences. Then there's domain-specific lexis such as screenwriter and general to specific paragraph structure. We can also take a look at more features. So, for example, we can do this exercise for know or new. So if you know the feature, no need to comment. But if the feature is new, maybe you can leave us a comment. The first one is it's a proper noun. It's a relational process, which is again a fancy way of saying was, or any other verb that talk about identifying him, showing his relation with his work or some other elements or things that he has. That's called a relational process. We'll see more on this in a bit, so let us know if it's new information. Nominal groups, passive voice, prepositional phrases, these are things that you might have heard about. Present participles, enumeration, again a fancy word for saying lists. So we can have lists that end in etc., or lists that have bullet points, comma separated values, and so on. Here's some more detail about the different paragraphs. So introduction and legacy, that part has features we've spoken of. Early life and interests, here we can have some more, for example, mental processes, verbs that talk about thinking, coordinated verb phrases, other phrases. Then it moves on to early career. You can check out the whole article on Wikipedia. Temporal adjuncts and other kind of adverbials. Material processes, which are actions. We'll see the difference between different processes in a bit. And then the fourth paragraph maybe is about breakthrough and collaboration. So there might be some appositions, which are different things that talk about or refer to the same person. We'll see an example in a bit. And then there are some other kinds of nouns and time markers. Here's a small note about what each of them is. Now, we don't have to be very specific right now because we're just getting familiar with different types of lexicogrammatical functions. Here's a short distinction between the three types of processes. I think you can read up more in Halliday if I'm not wrong. Relational, mental, material. Relational is about what something is or has. Mental about describing a thinking or feeling, and material about actions and doings. The same way, more features, clauses and phrases, and some other features about lexis, maybe adjuncts, maybe apposition, modifiers, and so on. Now, I've also put together this other part of Wikipedia articles where there's an information box with some subheadings and some information there. So I'm doing this so that we can get a hang of how it is possible to list features for different text and different examples, different genres as well. So take a look and think about what features this text might have. I'm going to give you the answers now. For example, the structured layout, there's labels and bullet points, the chronological detail, no contextualized language and no modals, and no cohesion devices because it just looks like a list of facts. So here's going back to the first part of the Wikipedia article so that we can see some of the features and do language analysis now, because the genre analysis and features that are typical to the genre we've already seen. So remember that the word typical is very important when doing genre and meaning, form, pronunciation analysis, because everything that you commonly see in such structures, things that are typical to such genres or text types, are going to be listed as features you can include in your response. And the reason we did genre analysis before going into language analysis, even though in the official paper, if you're preparing for Delta Module 1, you might see that you have fewer points or fewer marks that you can get for the genre analysis, it still kind of is a starter for the rest of the article and the rest of the features you will see in meaning, form, pronunciation, and appropriacy analysis. So always make sure you do the first part before delving further into the other linguistic features. So here we go. We're going to look at what those linguistic features are before looking at the text examples. So there's lexical, phonological, grammatical, and appropriacy or discourse related. Now take a look at this one here. The bird is trying to make something here. It looks like his homework, and the word with the question is do. So do we do homework or do we make it? We do homework. And this might be a lexical challenge for languages in which homework is associated with the word make in their language. So this is a lexical feature or lexical error for learners. Then we might have grammatical one. So he goes to school, third person. We need to use the correct conjugation, the correct subject-verb agreement. If you order bear instead of beer, you will get a whole animal at your table. So that's a phonological error. And then finally we have discourse. We can see that the bird is very angry because the other bird said, "Give me the book," instead of adding "please" to it. So that's related to appropriacy, because without please, it sounds like a command. And those are the 4 different categories. Now let's look at our extract one more time. Now these features will be specific to the CEFR levels, widely considered over here. So it could be B2 or maybe even a slight C1. We can comment on the meaning, use, form, and the learner challenges. Learner challenges are good to think about, even though they're not always asked for in the exam. They will help you understand the meaning and use much better. Now let's take a look at it. We have the meaning. Widely considered means that he is seen as one of the best filmmakers. And learners might have issues with understanding the meaning of widely. That's related just to the meaning. Then in form, we can talk more about the passive construction and the missing subject. And we can include the form. You will get full points for including every single word that is part of the form, but you do not have to include anything that is beyond it unless it is important to what you're describing in form. And then the phonology, the stress on widely and the reduced ed in considered, which can be a challenge for learners who are used to saying the ed every time. The same way, we can take a look at the rest of the features. Many times you'll be given 3 different examples which are very similar. So for example, you will be given widely considered with known for, and then one other structure, and you can talk about the features, and of course you can also talk about the differences. In this case, I've just given one example of each of the different types. So if you have 3 of them in the exam, usually you'll have 15 points, which means 5 for each, so you need to make minimum 5 very good points. Here are some. So widely we've already seen, so I'm gonna skip it. Born in, it is about giving background info. The structure part you can shift here in form. It is also typical in biographical writing. This is important to its use. And then we have the structure, the implicit subject, the collocation, and then we might have linking here in phonological features and the stress. This part may not be required if this part is not highlighted. So New York City, maybe only use it if that part is mentioned. And of course, you will have to use the phonetic symbols to explain something, like the difference between British and American English here. Let's go to the next one. Here, these parts may not be important because the only part that is highlighted is this one. So please remember to check that during the exam. And then we have attention to detail, that it talks about admiration for the work. Here are some more features about form. Is it idiomatic or not? So figurative. Is it a fixed expression? And so on. We can discuss those. And then finally here, this one, it talks about someone's profession. You don't need to say things that are related to the rest of the structure. And here we also say that, and here we're also saying that it's used to identify and classify. We have an adjective, and then here there's more information about the form. And pronunciation, we don't need to include Kubrick, but we can include American, as this is highlighted here. We can talk about the schwa, unstressed syllables, and the compound noun. And that's basically it. And that brings us to some features that you might need to study to enhance your knowledge for genre analysis and language analysis. So these are some of the features that you might need. Of course, the list is not exhaustive. For example, synonyms and antonyms are just the beginning part. You might have words such as metonyms, polysemes. You might have homographs, homophones, and so on here. But it's a good idea to take a look at lexical sets, to take a look at the connotation, the denotation, and so on. And then the same with discourse, theme, and rhyme, whether the referencing is forward or backward, appositions, conjunctions. In phonology, don't just think of word level stress, but also think of sentence stress and emphatic stress. Think of features of connected speech like catenation, reductions, intrusion, elision, all of those. And grammatical features, I think, are the most familiar, but at the delta level you have to go a little bit deeper. So make sure you know about types of modality, the complexity with the help of compound and complex sentences, clauses, the different types of phrases, other word classes. Previously we used to call them parts of speech. And now that brings us to the end of the video. Remember that we have a complete Delta course with personalized feedback, one-to-one sessions. We have a Google Classroom and unique materials and tests that can help you with your preparation for the Module 1 as well as Module 3 task. And we also do training for IB, Cambridge, and STEM schools. We place teachers, we provide training and materials, help them for interviews, help schools with evaluation and authorization for coordinators and school leaders. And we also do adult and young learner education, especially materials for all of the different ages in different languages. So please make sure to leave us a review at edushua.com/reviews, and also please buy our services if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to recommend our channel to others who might find it useful, and please share our content to those who might need it. Goodbye.